All right, and then our equation that we're working with is y equals 210 times 1.09 raised to the x. Okay, so again, I'm going to use kind of the same colors I did before. The A is equal to the start, and then the B is the growth, or, oops, sorry, scratch that out, or decay. So growth or decay. Sorry, that, don't put that, I messed up right there. It's just growth or decay. All right, so then that means right here, our B value is 1.09. Our start value is 210, but what we want to know when we're looking for percentage increase is that B value. That's what matters. All right, so we're going to use that, the 1.09, to figure that out. So first of all, this is growth because B is greater than 1. Okay, so B is greater than 1, so it's growth, right? But then on the percentage increase, the way we find that is you can just take this number and we want to know how much bigger than 1 is it. So in other words, what we're doing is we're focusing in on this 0.09. Okay, 0.09. So since it's growth, that part is our increase. That's the percentage increase, right? So what I'm basically doing, since it's growth, is I'm going to do 1.09 minus 1, which equals 0.09. Okay, and that's the percentage increase. But now I need to convert it to a percent. If you guys remember, to convert to a percent, I move the number 2 decimals. Okay, I move it 1, 2, and now I know it's 9%. That, again, is the percent increase. Okay, pause the video for a second so you guys can catch up on the notes. So you're right over here, we convert, actually we'll say convert decimal to percent. Okay, you got to move 2 spaces. You got to move the dot or move the decimal point 1, 2, and that will give me the percent. Okay, so now we're gonna write down that new example. So y equals, oops, on page, 8,600 times 0.96 raised to the x. So again, that's our B, that's the one we're focusing in on. And what we want to do is, again, figure out how far away from 1 is that number. Well, here, when it was bigger than 1, I did 1.09 minus 1. But here, because it's less than 1, I'm going to do 1 minus 0.96. Now, if I subtract those two, which again, actually first, let's just point out the fact that this is decay. That's decay because it's less than 1. Okay, and then 1 minus 0.96, that's going to be 0.04. And you can do that in Desmos if you want, to figure out that. Or if you need to do that with decimals. Okay, and again, just like before, move the number 2 spaces. So 1, 2, and now we know that it's 4%. Okay, but what's important is that this is a 4% decrease. Because that number is less than 1, so this is a 4% decrease. This one's bigger than 1, so that was an increase. We're subtracting. Okay, actually, let me not say subtracting. We're finding the difference from 1. Okay, so for the B value, we're trying to figure out the difference from 1. Okay, so we'll put in our 4%. Okay, get that right. All right, we're good there. All right, so, and I believe that the next ones will kind of be the same thing. So here, we're just kind of looking at it, this would be a decrease or decay. And then I do, since that's less, now I do 1 minus 0.82. So real quick, you guys don't have to take notes on this one. So 1 minus 0.82. You can see that is 0.18. And then what I'd want to do is now move that decimal 2 places, which will be 18. Okay. The other thing you can actually do, other than just moving the decimal place two times, if you multiply 100, it's the same thing. So if I multiply that times, let's put it here, 0.8 times 100, that actually will do the same thing. Okay. But basically just move the decimal place 2 places, and that will make it a percent. Okay. All right, so then down here on this one, it's pretty much the same thing. You can see that this one's a lot bigger than 1. Okay, it's not as close. Okay, so basically this would be growth. And how much bigger than 1 is it? Well, we added 0.97, so that's a 97% increase. Okay, that's pretty much how we handle those. All right, so now if I'm going down here to exponential functions basic. All right, so now it's going to give you some numbers for an equation. You have to create an equation and then use that equation to find a value. So here it says a town has a population of 13,000 and it's going to grow every year at 5%. It's asking what will be the population after 11 years. Okay, so you need to make an equation and then we're going to plug in 11 to figure out how many people there will be in 11 years. And then we want to round it to the nearest whole number because we're talking about people. And you want to always pay attention, guys. Look at what it's saying. Is it saying round to the nearest tenth, to the nearest cent, like if it's money, or nearest whole number? Okay, that's important when you're rounding. All right, so let's go ahead and do this one in our notes. Okay, so here we have 13,000 people. We'll put that over here, actually. Let's put 13,000 people. And remember, that's what we started with. That's our starting point. Okay, they start with 13,000 people. Okay, then it says that every year they're growing at a rate of 5%. And look at the key word there, grows. We're growing. Okay, so growing, that's important. You need to know whether it's growing or is it going down. So it grows. Okay, so grows 5% each year. Okay, when you see the word that says grows or is decreasing, that one is going to be your B. All right, so we're going to get the B from that number. That's not your B though. We've got to change it and then make it into our B. All right, and then the question was, how many people in 11 years. I'm sorry if you guys ran out of room there, but that's 11 years. So how many people in 11 years? This growth is not, we're not just adding like 10 people or 100 people every year, right? It's growing at 5%. So the amount that we're adding every year is going to change based on the percent, okay? So the way we set this up, all right, is we know that this is our start. That's our A value, right? But we got to find the B. So first, let's find the B. Okay, so we'll say find B. That's what we're doing right here. Okay, so for B, first we need to take that 5%. We're going to do the 5%. And how am I going to write this? Let's write it like this. And we got to convert it first. All right, so we're going to convert it. So remember that the 5, we would move that decimal the other direction. So here, to go to percent, we would go to the right, 1, 2. But if they start with the percent, now we go back 1, 2 the other way. Now, if we go back, remember that if you skip, if there's no number there, we're going to put a 0. Okay? Kind of zoom in a little bit on this one. So I go 1, 2. So now the percent is 0.05. Okay, but again, that's still not the B. Now remember, it said grows, right? Grows means plus. Grows means we're gonna add. We need to add. So we're gonna do 1 plus 0.05, and that will be our B. So basically, if you have a percent and it's growing, you add it to 1. And if you think about it, if it's decreasing then, like this one, then you would subtract it from 1, okay? So now we can make our equation. So now we already know that the start is 13,000. Our B now, which I'm going to take this number now and plug it in, that's 1.05 raised to the x. So there's our equation. All right, so now the last part is we're going to take that 11 and plug it into the x. So really what that is, our 11 is our x. And I just plug it in, 1.05 raised to the 11 now. And that's going to give us how many people, it's going to predict how many people will be there in 11 years for this town. So what I'm going to do is go over to Desmos, clear this out, 13,000 parentheses times 1.05, then hit the exponent, and then I want to put 11 there. And you can see here, here's the number we come up with. All right, so I'm gonna just write that down because if you guys remember, it says round to the nearest whole number. Okay, so that means no decimal, right? So 22,234, we'll say 0.4. Okay, because we need at least one number after the decimal to round it. All right, so now, again, if you guys remember, this is where I stop, but then that's where I look, because here it's a whole number, right? So round to whole number. Okay, so if this is a whole number, that means this is where I'm going to stop the number before the decimal. I need to look here, and if it's 4, that means this number is going to stay. So now I'll type in 22,234 people. Now, obviously, I'm not going to type people. Don't type people, but that's the answer to that question. So 22,234 people. Let's make sure we got it right. just put in the number itself, and it looks like we're good. Okay, so you can kind of see they did the same thing. They did 1 plus your R. Again, if it was decreased, we would do 1 minus the R. Okay, so now let's see. This is a good one. The annual interest rate. All right, so first of all, before we do this one, I'm going to come back here and let you guys copy this. So with interest, that means growth. That means we're increasing our money, not decreasing our money. So that's the key word. So when you're looking at these problems, you need to understand what the words mean. Okay, so annual interest rate of 5.5, and then how much will be in after 11 years. So we got like that same 11 years again. But now it says round to the nearest cent. Okay, so let's write those things down. So the A is $7,900. Okay, and then the percent is 5.5. Actually, let me say, let's do it this way. Let's write 5.5% interest. Interest. All right. And again, when we see interest, this is growth. All right. And then we want to know how much money after 11 years. All right. So again, that first one, that's our start value. So, but we need to figure out the B value first. Okay, so for the B value, first I'm going to take the 5.5 and we're going to convert it from percent into decimal. So remember that we move it 1, 2 places. And remember, I put a 0 there if I skip a place. So now this is going to be 0.055. And remember, this is growth, so we're going to add 1 plus that number. We add those together, it just becomes 1.055. All right, so that's our B. All right, so now we're going to set up our equation, and that B now gets plugged into as the second number, but to start the A, okay, remember 7,900 times the B value raised to the X. Okay, and then after that, just like the one before, we plug in the years. 7,900 times 1.055 raised to the 11th. Okay, so we'll plug that in. And one more thing we need to include here is that we are round to nearest cent. So round to nearest cent on this one. Okay. All right, so let's do that in Desmos first. Figure that out. So 7900, 1.055 raised to the 11, and we want to near cent. Remember, a cent means 2 places after the decimal. So 1, 2. So that's really the hundredth is what that is. So I'm going to write down these 3 numbers to help me round. So 14,200. $14,000, by the way, $14,000, 236.529. All right, so I wrote that down right here. Now again, we want to stop right here, but then we're looking here, okay, because we're going to talk about money. We want to stop there. The 9 is definitely going to raise that 2 up. So then the answer is $14,000. 236, $14,236.53. So again, it's important you pay attention to the, is it cents, tenth, or is it whole number? Okay, that's all going to be important. So I'll pause that for a second. You guys write that down. So now, so sorry. So that means this is actually just 0.82. I mean, I did the steps right, but totally messed up that. So this is actually 0.812. So that means in here, it's not 0.092 or it's just 0.812. All right, so that means I gotta do this, find this number again. All right, so let's just do that in Desmos, okay? So 0.812, I would set that up like this. Actually, since they already give us a number, let's just look here. Okay, now I get 9. It says round to the nearest 10th, so I would put in 92.60. And I look here, but then, I'm sorry, I stop here, but look here, the 0 doesn't do anything, so this ends up being 92.6. Okay. My fault. I don't know how I made the mistake on the calculator, unless I typed something wrong, but that can happen. All right. All right. So again, decrease, I got to subtract. That gives me the B, which is 0.812, and then set up the equation and plug it in. Okay. Okay. So now what I'm going to do is draw like almost like a triangle, because what I want to know is how far over do I go to this point and how far up. So in this case, I'm going +1 to the right. And then I'm going up +9 from there. All right. So I got to use all that to find an equation. So I got to find the equation from the graph. Now remember, the equation is y equals a times b dx. All right. So now on the graph, your a is the y-intercept. It's this number right here. That's going to be your a. Okay, so the other question it'll ask is, what is the y-intercept? Well, that's your y-intercept. So the y-intercept, let's list out this info. So the y-intercept is 0, 3. Your a equals 3, because we're just talking about the y value, okay? But then the question is, what is that number right there? And on the graph, it'll look like that, especially in the first example. If you guys look at the worksheet, you can see it's blank, right? Because it wants you to fill it in. So it asks you questions like, fill in the ordered pairs, which basically is just write in the numbers. What is the starting value, or the y-intercept? Okay, and what is the a value? So the starting value, y-intercept, and a value are the same thing. Okay, so starting value would be, or y-intercept is this guy, and then the a value is this guy. Question is, what is the b value? All right, well, we got to find the next point to get the b value. So what's happening here? If I go over 1 to the right, this means that x, this is x increase. So that means that we're adding to x, which means that if we're adding to x from that point, this is 1, because it's +1. Then this going up is your y increase. So that means what we're doing is we're adding 9 to the 3. So that means that the y value is 12. Now what I'm going to do next is use the points to find the b. All right, so what I'm going to do is take the 0, 3 and the 1, 12 and make a table. And now I have 0, 3, 1, 12. And you don't have to do this, but it just makes it easy to see it. All right, so now to find the b, all we're doing is figuring out what is the rate. What are we doing? What are we multiplying to go from 3 to 12? Well, you would multiply 4. So that is your b. Okay, so I know that's my b, so now I can set up my equation. So I got 3 is the a, the b is 4, and then I always raise it to the x. So that's ultimately what you're looking for there, by just looking at that equation. Okay, so again, going back here, remember that the number going to the right, you add that to the x, so that'd be 0 plus 1. And then going up, the plus, I just add 3, this number, I add this number and that number together, the y. And that's how I got 12.